Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Valdosta, City of Valdosta podcast. I'm Shara Denton. I'm your host for the afternoon. And today we have a good friend of mine, wonderful man. He doesn't have a lot of words, but maybe today he will. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. And can you tell the listeners who you are and what your title is and what you do for the City of Valdosta?
I'm Kevin Jenkins. I'm the city arborist for the City of Valdosta.
Okay. Awesome. And what does that mean necessarily?
Well, we are responsible for all the trees on city properties. We maintain any trees on city right-of-way, and we do regulate trees on commercial property.
Okay. And speaking of trees and things of that nature, we want to also talk about preparation. So part of that conversation has to do with why is it important to prepare trees and landscapes for hurricane season?
It's really important to prepare your trees and your landscape for hurricane season. As we approach, we get storms and things coming in. Mm-hmm. You want to be prepared and make sure your trees are ready to handle that storm. Try to prevent any property damage or anyone getting hurt or trees blowing over, or tree failures and things
that most people don't think about.
They don't think about it until after the fact. But it's I guess it's more on the radar with recent events with the hurricane that they had, the straight line winds event that we had.
Right.
A lot of people are looking at their trees right now, which is a good thing. Being more familiar with the trees, that's the most important thing. Get familiar with your trees.
And speaking of that, Kevin, can you tell us what are the best practices for tree maintenance leading up to hurricane season?
Oh, yes. And like I said, being one of the most important things you can do with your trees is just get familiar with your trees. Go out and check them out. Look at them on a regular basis. It's great to do a photo journal, and people don't think about this. Do a photo journal of your yard. And then that way you can go back and you can compare to see if the trees are different, if they moved, shifted, a limb looks different. That's a good indication that something's happened and it needs to be addressed.
And that leads me to my next question about tree pruning. Can you explain what that is and why it's important?
Tree pruning is just basically, removing unwanted, unnecessary, or damaged limbs off of a tree. It is very important to prune.
I'm sorry. Tree pruning.
It's important because you want to take care of your trees and keep your trees healthy. But by doing so, you don't want to go in and over prune. You don't want to go in and create big holes in the canopy and things like that. If you think of a tree canopy essentially as a wall, or rounded in nature as a dome, let's put it that way.
Right.
The wind dynamic, when the wind hits it, it just shears over it. So if you go in there and you start taking out too many branches or opening up big holes or voids in the tree,
it can make it worse.
It can make a wind tunnel to go through that canopy, and that's when you get big, large branch failures and things of that nature.
Well, with that being said, what particular types of trees are more susceptible to hurricane damage when you talk about tree pruning and preparing?
There's really no set. All trees are susceptible to hurricane damage. All trees are susceptible to wind damage. If you want to discuss the best tree for a hurricane, obviously it's a palm tree. If you want to talk about the best tree for our environment or the worst tree for our environment, obviously it's a palm tree.
Right.
So it's one of those things where, owning a tree, there's inherent risk of that tree. You're going to have, it doesn't matter if it's an oak, a pine, maple tree, they all have their
risk.
They all have their inherent risk.
And for homeowners, and I know during hurricane, ideally, some of us, I know I was still learning this last year, but you have homeowners that might not know the steps to take to prepare for all this. What are some key things that you think that they should know prior to a hurricane or just in general about trees around their homes?
The biggest thing that they can do to prepare for it, like I said, is become familiar with your trees. Go out and look at the trees. If you see something that catches your eye, hey, that doesn't look right, hire a professional to come in and evaluate your trees for you. Remove any damage, obviously, damaged limbs or
immediately.
Yeah. Anything that has a problem, a known problem, go ahead and eliminate that. Get that out of the way. Look at your trees at different times of the day, because in different lights, you can see different things. You can see those different defects that you might not be able to see in the morning time. Late afternoon, light coming in from a different direction, that defect might be more obvious to you.
Gotcha.
And again, like I said, one of the best things you can probably do is just take photos. And then that way you can go back and compare it later. And if anything's changed, you know it.
What role does the Arbor Division play in the aftermath of a hurricane? So let's say hurricane didn't happen, and as you know, it's a lot of things that moving parts to it. So what role does your team play in that?
Well, the Arbor Division steps up. We're one of the first responders. We go out and we start clearing roads, removing debris. We got zones that we work in, as well as go out and start doing tree evaluations on residential, commercial, city-owned. Mm-hmm. We go out and we start evaluating the damage. But our main role is to start getting those roads open back up, start getting some of that debris pushed out of the way, and start getting things back to some source of normalcy.
And you mentioned the first responders, and I think sometimes there's a misconception that you guys are out there putting your lives on the line too, because a lot of times there's down power lines, there's things that you have to work closely with the fire department or the local utility services. There's different team members that come together to help with that. When should homeowners consider calling professional for assistance when that situation happens?
Give it a little bit of time. I mean, right after the hurricane, everybody's stressed, everybody's adrenaline's pumping. Of course, everyone wants their house to be clean first. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants that tree off of their house or
immediately.
The down trees out of their yard right now. They want to be the first and foremost, the main important ones. Give it a little bit of time. Stay informed. Contact the city if you don't have access to news outlets or media. I know our PIO office does an excellent job putting out information of street closures and things like that. But just follow along. Stay informed.
Be patient.
Be patient. That's the biggest thing. Please be patient with us.
And speaking to that, during after the hurricane, we found a lot of residents were concerned because some people were not aware of how to find a reliable contractor or a reliable certified tree company in this area. What recommendations would you have for them in that situation?
In that situation, I can't stress this enough because we do, and it's just the nature of the game. Yeah. As soon as a natural disaster like that hits, we have storm chasers come in, and this is how these people make their money, and they're good at what they do. Mm-hmm. You can't always. Our local professionals just get overwhelmed. I mean, there's just so much work out there. You got to take advantage of some of these guys.
Right.
Check their credentials. Make sure they got a local business license. Make sure they're following the rules. Make sure that their insurance is valid. Ask mm-hmm. them for proof of insurance and check that insurance. Mm-hmm. Don't just look at a piece of paper where it says they have insurance. Call that insurance company. Make sure, verify. Check up on the professionals out there doing the work. And a lot of the out-of-town guys who come in, they don't know our local ordinances. Right. They don't know our local rules. And we've seen this in the straight line wind event where we had professionals out there and they were doing their job. I'm not going to say they weren't. Right. But they were just a lot of times ignorant to the fact that we weren't going to come back and clean up the debris. Right. That's one of the biggest things I think we ran into with the professionals was mm-hmm. after the fact, they were still stacking the debris out there on the road thinking the city was going to pick it up, and we're just not. That's their,
There's a process for all that.
Right. And that's their responsibility to haul that debris away, and they weren't. They mm-hmm. were telling the homeowners, the city to come by and get it.
Yes. We were bombarded with calls like that during that time. Yes.
We were. And I think, you're going to have Larry on in a little bit, and he's going to maybe elaborate on that. But, and if you ever have any questions or if you ever have doubts, excuse me, call the city. Ask questions mm-hmm. before you make any deals with any of these professionals. Call and talk to us. That's what we're here for.
Right. And we want to do everything we can to protect our citizens and inform them. And I know we found a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of people that were taken advantage of with that process because
we did.
We had so many people out of town and trucks everywhere. I'm like, well, where do these people come? Like any other time. And a lot of them were out, like you said, out of town, out of state. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give or like our listeners to, what advice would you give our listeners about preparing their trees for hurricane season coming up this year?
Again, have them evaluated by a professional if you can. If not, just get familiar with them. If you have anything obviously touching your house or, within a couple feet of your house, trim it back.
Mm-hmm.
Don't knee jerk reaction. Just go out there and cut all your trees down. Please don't
do that.
No. But again, the most important thing you can do is just have your trees inspected and make sure that they're all safe and healthy, and call in a professional if you don't feel comfortable doing that. Excuse me. Again, call the city. I mean, and a lot of times for city residents, mm-hmm. I can come out and check out your trees for you. I can do things like that. It may take me a while to get to you,
right? Because
we do have a lot of other work we're doing in the process. Mm-hmm. But there are times where I can do that for them if our local professionals can.
Well, how can people get in touch with you all in the Arbor Division, Kevin?
Call the City Engineering Department. The number's 229-259-3530. Ask to speak to me or ask to speak to Miss Angela Bray, who is my manager. Mm-hmm. And that's the best way to get a hold of us.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Just be careful and be ready. And if you need anything, please just reach out to us.
Thank you, Kevin. Again, thank you for your time. And that is Let's Talk Valdosta podcast.